The sun is finally out. After days of waiting, you step outside into your garden, hoping to enjoy a clean, peaceful space. For a brief moment, everything looks fine. The lawn is green, the patio is dry, and the garden seems calm. But then you notice them. A few dandelions scattered across the lawn, small weeds forcing their way up through the cracks in the patio, thin green shoots growing along the edges of the paving stones. And suddenly, that familiar frustration comes back. You have dealt with these weeds before. You have pulled them out, cut them down, sprayed them, and tried to ignore them. But somehow, they always seem to return. Sometimes they come back in the same place. Sometimes they spread even further. And after a while, it feels like no matter what you do, the weeds are winning. But here is the truth. Most people are not losing the battle against weeds because the weeds are too strong. They are losing because they are treating them the wrong way. They pull weeds out by hand and leave the roots behind. They buy the cheapest spray they can find and use it everywhere. They treat lawn weeds and patio weeds as if they are the same problem. Then they wonder why the weeds keep coming back again and again. In this guide, you are going to learn how to remove weeds properly, both from your lawn and from your patio or paving areas. These are two completely different problems, and they need two completely different solutions. First, we will look at lawn weeds, especially deep-rooted weeds like dandelions, and why pulling them out by hand often makes the problem worse. Then we will move to patio and paving weeds, where the right treatment is completely different. Finally, we will cover prevention, because killing weeds once is not enough. The real goal is not just to remove the weeds you can see today. The real goal is to stop them from coming back. Let us start with the lawn. When most people see a weed growing in the middle of their grass, especially something obvious like a dandelion, their first instinct is simple. They bend down, grab the leaves, and pull as hard as they can. And in that moment, it feels like the right thing to do. The weed disappears. The yellow flower is gone. The leaves are no longer sitting above the grass. You look at the spot and feel like you have solved the problem. But the real problem is not what you can see above the surface. The real problem is what is still hiding underneath the soil. Dandelions are a perfect example. They do not just have a small surface root that comes away easily. They grow a long, deep taproot that can reach up to 30 centimeters into the ground. That root is the part of the plant that allows it to survive, recover, and grow back. So when you pull a dandelion by hand, what usually happens? You remove the leaves, you remove the flower. You may even pull out a small piece of the upper root, but most of the taproot stays exactly where it was. It remains buried in the soil, alive, and ready to regrow. Within a few weeks, and sometimes even within a few days, a new plant can grow straight back from that same root. That means you did not truly remove the weed. You only pruned it. And this is why so many people feel like their lawn weeds are impossible to control. They think they are removing the weeds, but in reality, they are leaving the strongest part of the plant behind. Every time the top is pulled away and the root remains, the weed gets another chance to return. For individual lawn weeds, the better solution is to remove the entire root. This is where a long-handled weeding tool becomes extremely useful. Instead of simply pulling the leaves with your hands, this tool is designed to go deep into the soil beside the root. You push it down next to the weed, grip the root area, and lever the whole plant out cleanly. When done properly, the entire weed comes out, including the root. This method works especially well for weeds with a single deep taproot. Dandelions are the most obvious example, but the same approach also works for plantain thistles and other strong-rooted lawn weeds. The key is not speed. The key is removing the whole plant from the ground. If you only have a few weeds scattered across the lawn, this manual method may be all you need. It is simple, targeted, and does not require spraying anything over your grass. You can walk around the lawn, remove each weed carefully, and allow the grass around it to fill the space naturally. But not every weed problem is that simple. Sometimes the issue is not one dandelion here and one thistle there. Sometimes weeds have spread across a much larger area. You may see clover creeping through the grass patches of creeping buttercup, taking over sections of the lawn, or daisies appearing in clusters all over the surface. When weeds are spread widely across the lawn, removing them one by one becomes exhausting and unrealistic. A manual weeding tool can still help with the biggest individual weeds, but it will not solve the entire problem on its own. This is when you need a different approach. For widespread lawn weeds, the most effective option is usually a selective weed killer. The word selective is very important here. A selective weed killer is not designed to kill everything it touches. It is made specifically to target broadleaf weeds while leaving your grass unharmed. Broadleaf weeds include plants like dandelions, clover, daisies, plantain, and similar weeds that have a different structure from ordinary lawn grass. Grass and broadleaf weeds do not grow in exactly the same way. Because of those biological differences, a selective weed killer can target the weeds without damaging the grass around them when used correctly. This is where many people make a serious mistake. They use the wrong type of product on their lawn. They grab a general weed killer, spray it across the grass, and then end up with dead brown patches because the product was not meant for lawns. On a lawn, you must use a product that is clearly labeled as safe for grass and designed for lawn weeds. The goal is not to kill the lawn. The goal is to remove the weeds while allowing the grass to recover. Once you decide to use a selective weed killer, timing and application matter just as much as the product itself. You should apply it on a dry, calm day. This is important for two reasons. First, the product needs time to sit on the leaves of the weeds so it can be absorbed properly. If rain arrives too soon after application, the treatment can be washed away before it has time to work. That means weaker results and wasted effort. Second, calm weather helps keep the spray exactly where you want it. Even a light breeze can carry droplets away from the target area. On a lawn, this may not seem like a major issue if you are using a lawn-safe product, but careful application is still important. You want the treatment on the weeds, not drifting into flower beds, vegetable patches, or nearby plants you want to keep. Before spraying, always read the product label carefully. Different products may have different instructions, and the label will tell you how much to use, how long to wait before mowing, and when it is safe to allow children or pets back onto the grass. As a general rule, keep children and pets off the lawn until the product has completely dried. This is a simple safety step, but it is one many people forget. Once the surface is fully dry and the product instructions allow it, the lawn can be used again. After applying a selective weed killer, do not expect the weeds to disappear overnight. The process usually takes time. Over the next 2 to 3 weeks, the weeds will begin to change. Their leaves may start to yellow. The plant may curl, shrink, and weaken. Eventually, the weeds will shrivel and die back. This slower process is normal. It means the treatment is working through the plant properly, rather than just burning the visible leaves. As the weeds die, the grass around them has a chance to recover. If the lawn is healthy, it will slowly close in over the gaps left behind. This is why selective treatment is so useful. It removes the unwanted broadleaf plants while giving the grass space to return. But killing the weeds is only half the job. If you do not change the conditions that allowed the weeds to grow in the first place, new weed seeds will eventually germinate. They may come from nearby gardens, be carried by wind, dropped by birds, or already be sitting in the soil waiting for the right conditions. The best long-term defense is a thick, healthy lawn, And one of the easiest ways to encourage that is to raise your mowing height. Many people cut their grass far too short. They think a short lawn looks neat and tidy, but cutting too low weakens the grass. It exposes the soil surface to more sunlight, creates open space, and gives weed seeds exactly what they need to sprout. Weed seeds need light to germinate. When your grass is kept taller, around 3 to 4 inches, it becomes thicker and denser. The grass blades shade the soil surface, which blocks sunlight from reaching the weed seeds below. Without enough light, many of those seeds cannot germinate successfully. This turns your lawn into its own natural defense system. Instead of constantly fighting new weeds, you create conditions where weeds struggle to establish themselves in the first place. Taller grass also tends to hold moisture. Better, protect the soil and create a fuller, healthier appearance. So after treating lawn weeds, do not go back to scalping the grass every week. Let it grow slightly taller. Keep it dense. Give it strength. A strong lawn is not just grass. It is the barrier that prevents weeds from taking over again. Now let us move away from the lawn and look at the patio. The weeds growing between paving slabs along patio edges and inside small cracks are a completely different problem from the weeds growing in your grass. They may look similar above the surface, but the environment they grow in is different. And that means the solution needs to be different as well. Lawn weeds grow among living grass. When you treat them, you must be careful not to damage the lawn around them. Patio weeds, on the other hand, often grow in hard surfaces, gaps, joints, and cracks where there is very little soil. Because of that, you can use methods on patios that you should never use on a lawn. This is where many people make a big mistake. They reach for a total weed killer, often something containing glyphosate, and spray it generously across the patio. On a hard surface, that kind of product can kill weeds effectively. The problem begins when the spray does not stay exactly where you put it. And in real gardens, spray rarely stays perfectly still. Even a small amount of drift can become a problem. A light breeze can carry droplets onto the nearby lawn. Overspray can land on the grass at the edge of the patio. Rainwater can move residue toward areas you did not intend to treat. If a total weed killer reaches your lawn, it does not know the difference between a weed and healthy grass. It can kill whatever green plant it touches. That means you may end up with ugly brown patches in your lawn, especially near the patio edges. These damaged patches can take a long time to recover. In some cases, the grass may need reseeding or repair before it looks normal again. That is why patio weeds should not be treated in the same way as lawn weeds. The goal on the patio is to remove weeds from cracks and joints without creating damage in the surrounding garden. You want to target the problem directly, safely, and with as little risk as possible to the grass borders and nearby plants. The good news is that patio weeds can be controlled very effectively without relying on heavy spraying. In fact, some of the best patio weed solutions are simple, cheap, and easy to apply. You can use heat. You can use basic household ingredients. You can physically remove the roots from the joints. And for larger areas, you can use tools that clear weeds quickly without leaving chemical residue behind. Once you understand that patios and lawns need different treatment, the whole job becomes much easier. For the lawn, you protect the grass while removing broadleaf weeds. For the patio, you attack the weeds directly in the cracks where they grow. And that is exactly what we will cover next. Now that we understand patio weeds need a different approach, let us look at 3 effective ways to remove them. The first method is boiling water. This is one of the simplest weed treatments, but it is also one of the most overlooked. You do not need a special product. You do not need expensive equipment. You only need boiling water and a careful hand. Boiling water damages plant cells immediately when it touches them. When poured directly onto weeds growing between paving slabs, it burns. The leaves weakens the stem and can damage the small roots hidden inside the joints. To use this method, boil a kettle of water and carry it carefully to the patio. Pour the water slowly and directly over the weeds, making sure the hot water goes into the cracks where the roots are growing. Within 24 to 48 hours, the weeds should begin to turn brown, collapse, and die. This method is especially useful for small weeds, young weeds, and weeds growing in narrow gaps. It costs almost nothing, leaves no chemical residue, and is safe for hard paving surfaces when used carefully. But you must be cautious. Boiling water will damage any plant it touches, so do not pour it near flowers, vegetables, or lawn edges you want to protect. The second method is a homemade weed-killing mixture. Many gardeners use a simple mixture of white vinegar, table salt, and a small squeeze of washing up liquid. Each ingredient has a purpose. The vinegar helps break down the waxy coating on the leaves. This coating normally protects the plant from drying out. Once it is damaged, the weed becomes much more vulnerable. The salt draws moisture out of the plant and helps dehydrate it. The washing up liquid helps the mixture stick to the leaves instead of running straight off. This gives the vinegar and salt more time to work on the surface of the weed. To use it, mix the ingredients together and spray the solution directly onto the patio weeds on a warm, dry day. Try to coat the leaves well, but avoid spraying too widely. The mixture should go onto the weeds, not across the entire garden. This method works well between paving slabs because you are treating areas where you do not want anything to grow. However, it must never be used on or near your lawn. It can change the acidity and condition of the soil where it lands, making it harder for healthy plants or grass to grow later. So use it only in the right place between slabs, along paving joints, and in cracks where weeds are unwanted. The third method is physical removal. Some weeds are too stubborn for surface treatments alone. They may have thick roots wedged deep between the paving slabs, or they may have been growing in the same joint for a long time. In those cases, the best method is to scrape them out properly. A wire brush is useful for cleaning small weeds, moss, and loose growth from the joints. A patio knife is even better for digging into narrow cracks and lifting out roots. Work slowly along each joint, scraping out as much root material as possible. Once the weeds and roots are removed, sweep away the debris so it does not settle back into the gaps. For larger patios or long paths, a flame weeder can also be useful. This tool uses intense heat to kill weeds quickly. You do not need to burn the plant to ash. A brief pass of heat is usually enough to damage the plant cells and stop the weed from surviving. The main benefit of these physical and heat-based methods is that they avoid chemical residue. They are direct, practical, and effective when used carefully. For the best results, you can combine these methods. Use boiling water for young weeds. Use the homemade mixture for stubborn weeds and dry cracks. Use a patio knife wire brush or flame weeder for deeper-rooted growth. Once the patio is clear, you are ready for the most important step of all, stopping the weeds from coming back. Once your patio is clear, the most important step is prevention. Killing weeds is useful, but if you leave the same open cracks and loose joints behind, new weeds will eventually return. Seeds can be carried by the wind, dropped by birds, washed in by rain, or blown across from nearby gardens. Once they land in the gaps between your paving slabs, they only need a little moisture, a little loose material, and enough space to take root. That is why the joints between your paving slabs matter so much. Those small gaps are where weed seeds settle. Over time, dust, soil, dead leaves, and organic debris collect inside them. This creates the perfect little growing space for weeds, even if there is no proper soil. At first, nature slowly fills the cracks with enough material for seeds to germinate. So, after removing the weeds, do not leave the gaps empty. Fill them. One of the simplest options is kiln-dried sand. This type of sand is very dry and fine, which allows it to brush easily into the joints between paving slabs. Once the patio is clean and dry, spread the sand across the surface and use a stiff brush to push it firmly into every gap. Keep brushing until the joints are packed as tightly as possible. The goal is to leave no loose open space where seeds can settle and grow. An even stronger option is polymeric sand. Polymeric sand is designed to harden when it is watered. You brush it into the paving joints in a similar way, but after it has been packed into place, water activates the binding agents inside it. Once it sets, it becomes firm, stable, and much harder for weeds to grow through. This makes polymeric sand especially effective for long-term prevention. When the joints are sealed properly, weed seeds have fewer places to land, less loose material to root into, and much less chance of establishing themselves. It also helps keep the patio looking cleaner and more finished. This is best done on a warm, dry afternoon when the paving is not wet. The cleaner and drier the surface is before you start, the better the sand will settle into the joints. It may feel like a small job, but it can save you hours of weeding every year. Instead of constantly fighting the same weeds over and over again, you are removing the conditions that allow them to return. That is the difference between temporary weed control and long-term weed prevention. Once you finally remove the stubborn weeds from your lawn and patio, the garden immediately starts to look cleaner, neater, and much easier to manage. But after the weeds are gone, you may notice a new problem: bare patches. This is especially common on lawns where large weeds have been growing for a long time. When you remove a deep taproot, such as a dandelion root, it can leave a small hole or an exposed patch of soil behind. If you have killed thick clumps of clover daisies or creeping weeds, those areas may also look thin, weak, or empty once the unwanted plants die back. At first, this can feel disappointing. You did the work. You removed the weeds. You treated the lawn properly. But now, instead of a perfect green surface, you may be left with little brown or bare spots across the grass. Do not worry. This is normal. Bare patches are not a sign that you failed. They are simply the space that the weeds were occupying. Now that those weeds are gone, the lawn has a chance to recover. But if you want thick green grass to grow back quickly, you need to repair those spots the right way. Bare patches can appear for many reasons. They may be caused by old weeds, heavy foot traffic pets, poor soil shade, or previous damage from cutting the grass too short. Whatever the cause, leaving bare soil exposed for too long is never a good idea. Open soil invites new weed seeds to settle in. That means if you remove weeds, but do not repair the empty spaces, the same problem can start all over again. So the next step is lawn repair. If your lawn is currently full of bare patches, thin areas, or damaged spots, let me know in the comments. In the next video, we will cover exactly how to repair those bare areas and get thick, healthy green grass growing back fast. You will learn how to prepare the soil, choose the right grass seed, improve germination, and protect the new growth so it has the best chance to fill in properly. So make sure you subscribe because you will not want to miss that, and I will see you in the next one.